The city lights glittered like scattered jewels, but inside Victor's car, a different kind of warmth glowed. His daughter, Lily, 7 years old with eyes as bright as fireflies, hummed a tune from her favorite cartoon. Victor, a man in his mid-30s with a kind smile and tired but loving eyes, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. He was a rideshare driver, navigating the maze of city streets every evening, a job that paid the bills and, more importantly, let him be home for Lily in the mornings. Their apartment was small but always filled with laughter and the smell of Lily's crayon drawings. Tonight, after dropping off his last passenger, Victor would take Lily for their special Friday night treat. A small ice cream cone, just one scoop, but it felt like a feast to them both. He loved watching her face light up with pure joy over simple things. Being a dad was the most important job he had, far more important than any other. He'd traded a different life for this one, a life of sirens and quick decisions, but he never regretted it. This quiet, simple life with Lily was everything. He remembered the way her small hand fit perfectly in his, the way she'd tell him all about her day at school, sometimes making up silly stories that would make him chuckle. Every fare he picked up, every mile he drove was for her. It was for her future, for her happiness, for the life they were building together, brick by loving brick. As he pulled up to a busy corner ready for his next ride, a comfortable quiet settled between father and daughter, a silent promise of their unbreakable bond. Victor finished his shift after dropping off Lily at her grandma's for the night. The city was a blur of neon and hurried footsteps. His phone buzzed, a new ride request popped up, a pickup from a fancy high-rise building downtown. He drove towards the glittering skyscraper, a place where people in expensive suits zipped in and out. This was a different world from his quiet apartment, a world of big money and important business. He pulled up to the curb and a woman stepped out from under the tall glass awning. She was dressed in a sharp, dark suit, her hair pulled back neatly, and she held a sleek, expensive-looking handbag. This was Ms. Albright. Her face showed no smile, only a serious expression. She barely glanced at Victor as she opened the back door and slid in. The air in the car suddenly felt colder, more formal. Albright pulled out her phone, her fingers tapping quickly. She didn't say hello or ask how his day was going, which was fine. Many passengers were like that. But there was something about her that felt different, a slight lift of her chin, a way she sat that seemed to say, "I'm important and you're not." Victor, used to all kinds of people, just focused on the road, ready to take her wherever she needed to go. He knew his job was to get her there safely and on time, and that was all that mattered. The city lights continued to streak by, reflecting in the car's windows as they began their journey through the busy night. The drive started quietly, the only sounds being the hum of the engine and the distant city noise. Victor focused on the road, but then Ms. Albright cleared her throat. "You know," she said, her voice crisp, "I really don't understand people who choose to do this." She waved a hand vaguely around the car as if dismissing the whole profession. Victor gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. He wasn't sure what to say. He usually tried to be friendly, but her tone made him feel like he shouldn't even speak. "It just seems like a waste," she continued, not looking at him but at her phone. "All that time just driving around, don't you ever wish you had something more important to do, something with real impact?" Her words stung. Victor thought of Lily, her bright smile, her trusting hand in his. He thought of the sacrifices he made every day to be there for her, to give her a good life. That felt important to him, more important than anything. But to Ms. Albright, it was just driving around. "Everyone has their own path, ma'am," Victor said, keeping his voice even. "This job allows me to provide for my family." She finally looked up, a slight frown on her face. "Yes, well, of course. But you're just a driver, aren't you? It's not exactly a career, is it?" She gave a small, dismissive sigh, then went back to her phone. Victor felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He'd heard it before, this kind of talk. It made him feel small, as if his efforts, his love, and his daily grind meant nothing because his job wasn't important enough. He swallowed hard, pushing down the hurt, and kept driving, his gaze fixed on the endless stream of tail lights ahead. Victor continued driving, the sting of Ms. Albright's words still fresh, when a sudden, piercing screech of tires ripped through the night. It was followed by a sickening thud that made everyone in the surrounding cars jump. Up ahead, near a busy intersection, a figure lay motionless in the crosswalk. A car had swerved, its front end crumpled, and people were already spilling out of their vehicles, pointing and shouting. A collective gasp went through the street. Horns blared not in anger now, but in alarm. Ms. Albright, who had been calmly tapping on her phone, looked up sharply, her eyes wide with shock. "What was that?" she asked, her voice losing its usual cool edge. Victor didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the scene. A person was down, clearly hurt, perhaps very badly. Panic began to spread through the crowd. Some drivers were yelling, others were frozen, their faces pale in the glow of their headlights. The smooth flow of city traffic instantly turned into a chaotic tangle of stopped cars and frightened faces. Victor's heart hammered, but a different part of his brain, a part that had been quiet for a long time, suddenly sparked to life. It was the part that knew what to do when others were lost. He saw the confusion, the fear, and the helpless victim. He knew he couldn't just sit there. He had to act. The insults from moments before faded into the background, replaced by a clear, urgent call to help. Without a moment's hesitation, Victor pulled his car safely to the side of the road, flicked on his hazard lights, and opened his door. Ms. Albright, still looking stunned, called out, "Where are you going?" But Victor was already out, moving quickly. The chaos around him seemed to slow down. The loud shouts, the blaring horns, the terrified faces, they all became a blur. His mind cleared, focusing only on the hurt person in the road. "Call 911, he yelled, his voice strong and clear, cutting through the noise. "Tell them a pedestrian was hit." He approached the victim carefully, his eyes scanning for dangers, remembering all the training that had once been his whole life. He knelt down, checking for breathing and obvious injuries. His hands, usually guiding a steering wheel, now moved with practiced ease. "Sir, can you hear me?" Victor asked, his voice calm and steady. He checked for a pulse, noting how weak it felt. He gently took off his jacket and placed it under the victim's head to help keep them still and warm. The frightened faces in the crowd watched him, their own panic slowly quieting as they saw his steady actions. He directed onlookers to help block traffic with their cars, creating a safe zone around the injured person. He was no longer just a rideshare driver. He was an EMT again, a hero in the making, doing what he knew best when it mattered most. His mind was sharp, focused, and completely in charge. Victor knelt beside the injured person, his hands moving with purpose. He spoke in a soft, reassuring voice, checking for injuries, making sure the person was still breathing. "Help is coming," he repeated gently, trying to keep the victim calm. He noticed a deep cut on their arm and quickly took off his belt, using it to put pressure on the wound. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best he could do with what he had. Ms. Albright had stepped out of the car, watching him with wide, unblinking eyes. The other drivers, no longer panicking, stood quietly, some on their phones talking to 911, others simply staring at Victor, amazed by his calm actions. He told one person to find something clean to cover the victim if they could, and another to keep an eye out for the ambulance. He was like a leader, even though he was just a rideshare driver a few minutes ago. Time seemed to stretch, but Victor stayed focused. He kept talking to the injured person, asking simple questions, even when they couldn't answer, just to keep them aware. He carefully checked their head, neck, and limbs, looking for any other hidden problems. He knew every minute counted. Finally, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, bringing relief. Victor didn't stop until the paramedics were right beside him, ready to take over. He quickly told them everything he had done and what he had found. The paramedics nodded, impressed by his quick thinking and clear report. He had kept a stranger safe, showing incredible bravery and smarts when it mattered most. As the paramedics loaded the injured person into the ambulance, Victor felt a deep sigh escape him. The adrenaline slowly left his body, and the city noise returned, now mixed with the fading wail of the siren. He walked back to his car, his jacket still on the ground where it had helped the victim. Albright was waiting by his open car door, her expression unreadable. He picked up his jacket, shaking off the dust. In that moment, the reason he had left emergency medicine rushed back to him. It wasn't a choice he made lightly. He loved being an EMT, loved the rush of helping people, of being truly useful in a crisis. But then his wife, Lily's mother, had fallen sick. The illness had taken her slowly, painfully, leaving Victor to care for her and their baby daughter. After his wife passed away, the long, unpredictable hours of an EMT job just wouldn't work anymore. Who would take care of Lily? Who would be there for her every morning, every evening? He couldn't risk missing a moment of her childhood, not after losing so much. So Victor had hung up his uniform, packed away his first aid kit, and found a job that let him be a steady presence in Lily's life. He became a rideshare driver, a job that allowed him to drop her off at school, pick her up, and be home for bedtime stories. It was a sacrifice, yes, but one he made with a full heart for the most important person in his world. He looked at the steering wheel, a simple tool that now connected him to his daughter, and knew he had done the right thing. The next morning, Victor's phone began to ring non-stop. He usually ignored calls from unknown numbers, but these kept coming. Then a friend texted him, "Dude, you're on the news." Confused, Victor turned on his small TV. There he was, his face caught on someone's phone camera, calmly helping the injured pedestrian. The news anchor spoke with excitement about the mystery rideshare hero. The story spread like wildfire. Social media lit up with videos and praise for the brave driver. But then, a short clip from a bystander's video surfaced. It showed Ms. Albright standing near Victor's car, but more importantly, it captured her words from earlier that night. Someone had filmed her saying, "You're just a driver, aren't you? It's not exactly a career." The internet exploded. People were angry. How could someone mock a man who then turned out to be a hero? The contrast was stark. Victor, the humble driver saving a life, and Ms. Albright, the wealthy executive who had belittled him. News shows started talking about privilege and disrespect. They showed her picture, her name, and her company's name. Suddenly, Ms. Albright, who thought she was so important, was being talked about in a very bad way. The media storm grew bigger, making her look worse with every new post and story. Victor just wanted to drive his roots and be with Lily, but his quiet act of heroism had turned into a very public spectacle. The public outcry against Ms. Albright grew louder each day. Reporters swarmed her office building, demanding answers. Online, people called for her to be fired. Her company even put out a statement saying they were looking into the matter. It would have been easy for her to hide, to let her public relations team try to fix things without her. But Ms. Albright surprised everyone. Instead of running away from the storm, she faced it head-on. She called a press conference, a brave move given how angry everyone was. Victor, watching from home, wondered what she would say. Would she apologize? Would she try to explain away her words? When she stood before the cameras, her face was serious, but her eyes held a new kind of light. "I am here today," she began, her voice steady, "to talk about Victor, the man who saved a life, and to talk about myself." She paused, taking a deep breath. My words to him that night were wrong. They were thoughtless and showed a lack of respect for a man who is clearly more valuable than I understood. She didn't make excuses. She didn't try to blame anyone else. She simply owned her mistake. Victor watched, a little stunned. He had expected anger, maybe even more insults, but not this. Ms. Albright, the fancy lady who had made him feel small, was standing up for him, right in front of the whole city. It was a surprising turn that changed everything. After admitting her mistake, Ms. Albright didn't stop there. She looked directly into the cameras, her voice strong and clear. "Victor," she said, "is not just a driver. He is a hero. He is a man who, without thinking of his own safety, rushed to help a stranger when no one else knew what to do. His calm actions saved a life." She went on to tell everyone what she had seen. She spoke of how Victor had taken charge, how he had used his hands to stop the bleeding, how he had given comfort. "He acted with skill and bravery that night," she explained, skills he gained from his past as an EMT. A past he gave up to raise his daughter, Lily, after facing great personal loss. Victor, still watching from home, felt a warmth spread through him. She understood. She truly saw him now, not just as a rideshare driver, but as a man who had made big choices for his family, a man with a hidden strength. Ms. Albright's eyes, once so cold and judging, now held a deep respect. She was telling the world that his life, his choices, and his heart were important. She was showing everyone his true worth and kindness, making sure that no one could call him just a driver again. Her words changed the whole story, turning the tide of public opinion from anger at her to admiration for Victor. After the press conference, Ms. Albright reached out to Victor. She didn't just apologize again. She asked to truly understand his life, to know more about the man she had so wrongly judged. They started meeting for coffee, just to talk. Victor found himself surprised by her. Away from the glare of her high-powered job, she was thoughtful, even a little shy. Her name was Amelia. Amelia listened carefully as Victor spoke about Lily, about his late wife, and the difficult choice he had made to leave emergency medicine. She saw the deep love he had for his daughter and the quiet strength it took to be a single dad. And Victor, in turn, learned about Amelia's own pressures, the loneliness that often came with her success, and the unexpected courage it took for her to publicly admit her mistake. Their conversations grew longer, stretching from coffee into dinner, filled with laughter and honest talks. Amelia even met Lily, who, after a moment of shyness, quickly warmed to Amelia's gentle kindness. Lily drew her pictures and told her stories, something Victor hadn't seen her do with many adults outside their family. Slowly, gently, a friendship began to bloom between Victor and Amelia. It wasn't rushed or forced. It grew from shared respect and a newfound understanding. Victor saw past her fancy clothes and important job to the kind and brave woman underneath. Amelia saw past his humble job to the heroic, loving father he truly was. Their bond deepened, becoming something very special, a romance that started in the most unexpected way. One sunny morning, Lily skipped into her classroom, a wide grin on her face and a folded newspaper tucked carefully under her arm. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she waited for circle time. When it was her turn to share, she stood up tall, holding out the newspaper for all her friends to see. "My dad is a hero," she announced loudly, her voice filled with so much pride that everyone in the room paid attention. The headline on the paper read, "Rideshare driver former EMT saves life in city street." There was a picture of Victor, looking serious and kind, just like he always did. Her classmates gasped and gathered around, eager to see. "Wow, Lily," one friend exclaimed. "Your dad is famous." Another asked, "Did he really save someone?" Lily nodded, beaming. "Yes, he helped a hurt person, and he was so brave." "He used to be an EMT, that's like a special helper for emergencies," she explained, puffing out her chest a little. She pointed to the picture. "He's the best dad in the whole wide world, and he's a hero." Victor, who had dropped her off just minutes before, had no idea of the proud moment unfolding. He was simply driving his car, listening to the radio, perhaps thinking of Amelia, or planning Lily's next ice cream treat. But in that classroom, Lily was showing everyone that her dad was more than just a driver. He was a hero, not because of a fancy job, but because of his big heart and brave actions. And in her eyes, that was the most important thing of all.